Hello everyone, this is Rodin and we're going to be doing something a little different today. Apart from our usual market play type of content in the video games we play, EVE Online and Albion Online. We're going to do a little bit more of a tutorial today. Hopefully this will be the first of several videos that I intend to make covering how to do profitable market play in EVE Online. We were actually approached by one of our folks that we normally work with as far as our investment group to produce some sort of guide for his alliance. And here we are with this video. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get right to it. One of the first things I definitely want to engage you guys on first is the kind of the scope of this video. So this video isn't going to be very technically based. It is going to cover a lot of the fundamentals. So it's going to cover large concepts, large ideas, not so much how to get rich right now, but it's going to tackle questions that are a little more fundamental, okay? Some questions that are probably more appropriate for this being the base lesson, hopefully. All right, so we're going to go ahead and carry on. So today we're going to be talking about passive income through market play. So very, very base lesson here, and we're going to cover large ideas. All right. All right, so this is part of the school book series. I'm going to be covering playing major market hubs. So these are the topics that we are going to cover today. What type of players should care about market play? Why focus on the market instead of other income sources? How do you read the market? Take ownership of the process and spread the word and increase your profit. All right, so what type of player should care about market play? Believe it or not, not everyone is actually suited for market play. All right, so a lot of it has got to deal with kind of not just technical knowledge of the player, but what kind of player we're talking about here. We're going to make a very, very general comparison here. So in the realm of EVE Online, let's compare generalist type players versus specialists, and which ones would be more than likely have more success doing market play. From my experience, a lot of these is going to come from my experience. All right, generalists. What do I mean by generalists? Basically, those are the types of people who, for the most part, are average players. All right, they know a little bit of a lot of things, but not necessarily experts in anything. But they have a better idea of how the overall game of EVE works versus specialists. So specialists, that could be anyone like your nullsec PvP gods. All right, they know everything there is to know about large fleet fights, or they know everything there is to know about low-sec frigate PvP, or even more on the industrial end, folks who are been producing Tech 2 since 2005 or something like that, right? And they've basically they know the spreadsheets. They've already memorized the spreadsheets that they have in their head. All right. Between those two types of players, from my experience, generalists tend to be a little bit more successful. They tend to be a little bit more successful because they have a better idea of the general state of the market. They have a better idea of what normal EVE players actually use and do in the game. They have a better idea of simple things like, hey, how much does a ratting VNI cost? Some of your specialists are absolutely oblivious to say PvE side of the game. All they know is PvP, and sometimes vice versa too. All right, generalists just have a much more full scope of knowledge versus specialists, and that gives them a little bit of an edge over those types of players. So if you're a generalist, I think you already have a pretty good uh, base attributes to really become a successful or workable market player. All right, the next subtopic here we're going to cover is time commitments. If you're a player that has a little bit of time to spare in the eve time that you have allotted for yourself already, like, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10% of your eve time per week can be devoted to something outside of what you normally do. Marketplace could fill that void and actually pay out quite well for you. All right. A lot of folks really kind of get this idea of, I'm just gonna work really, really hard to do market stuff, to do trading, to do production or whatever, and just really commit to it. But they can't really commit that same amount of time all the time. So that can be a problem, especially for mid to long-term planned marketplace or trades that could literally take anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks or even months to actually go through a full buy and sell cycle. All right. So you have to be realistic and acknowledge how much time you actually have to play the market side of the game. If you can devote, like realistically, if you can devote anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes a night to do just market stuff, that can really give you a pretty good advantage over the long run. Now, I'm not saying you're actively adjusting orders or hauling stuff around in those 30 minutes, but what I do mean is you're using that time to better yourself as a general market player. It could be something as simple as just looking through the market, just going through, I'm just gonna go through some charts, or I just want to see. I've been watching this one module, and I'm just trying to see what the price trends are for the past few days. Something like that. All right, and the next thing we're gonna go over is effort. How much effort are you genuinely willing to do for this one? A lot of people kind of get this misconception that, trading and market, that's passive play. It doesn't take that much effort. I'm gonna break your bubble right now because it takes a lot of effort. It really, really does. The amount of, and it's not so much active effort. It's more of, you're constantly vigilant. You constantly have your eye open for deals. You're constantly talking to people and picking each other's brains as far as what they may be seeing in their own respective hubs. And a lot of times, just changing your way of playing to be to always be on the lookout for the next big break. That's kind of part of being, that's part of being a market guy. And finally, expectations. If you are a player that must be an Omega player, and you are not currently an Omega right now, and this is your first time delving into market play in EVE, you should not have the expectation that you can flex your account just by doing market stuff. It can be a part of it, but it's more than likely will not be the main activity that's going to earn you your Omega status month after month after month. At least not in the beginning. Maybe down the line, once you've increased your knowledge and you've increased your bankroll, but more than likely not in the beginning. And that's just honestly not trying to burst your bubble or be mean. I'm just being realistic. All right. So Those are things to consider if you're a player that wants to be more involved in market play. All right, why focus on the market instead of other income sources? This is a really good question, and a lot of this is really a lot of angles you can kind of attack this question. So the very first one would be because of its passive nature. A lot of people simply dismiss market play or manufacturing or industry in general a lot of times because it's passive. It will earn me too little for the time and effort I want to devote to it. Now, depending on how your actual operation works, that actually may be true. However, if you can work around, if you can take advantage of how to properly scale dedicated market activities, the passive nature is fine because you'll be aware of how to take advantage of every small action that you can to maximize profit. So let me give you guys an example. So the very, very first time that I seriously took on trading as an activity in the game, I think I started with 2 billion ISK. That was probably almost 2 years ago now. And with that 2 billion ISK at the time, it felt like I was really working hard just to manage and keep moving, keep circulating that 2 billion ISK through my wallet. Fast forward a few months from that point, and I was working anywhere from 50 to 70, even upwards of 100 billion ISK. But at the same time, I actually was devoting less actions per session, managing a much larger chunk of money. So through the experience that I've gained and knowledge of just talking to people in general, just picking other people's brains, I was able to use the passive nature of market play and actually take full advantage of the actions and using that to maximize profit, using it with a much larger wallet at the time. So passive nature, it's got a lot to do with the scaling piece. Okay. All right, solo viability. A lot of times people, this is kind of like a make or break for a lot of people. It's really, really odd, Eve being an MMO. For whatever reason, a lot of people will go out of their way to find solo activities because, reason ABC. Like me personally, I like to do solo activities because I don't want to wait on other people. I don't want to be reliant on, I'm the only one online in my corp or my alliance. I guess I can't do that activity. So that's kind of shitty. So is market play solo viable? Yeah, it really, really is. To be honest, it's probably the only safe way to do it as far as actually playing off of the major market hubs like Jita, Amar, Dodixie. Definitely not Rens. Rens probably should be relegated to a minor variety store right now. And that's important for a lot of people because sometimes they may want a source of income that is outside of their alliance, for whatever reason, just as a fail-safe, if anything were to happen, I'll always have this one ISK-making character. There you go. Now, to counter that solo viability, the very natural solo viability of market play, there's also group work potential. The best example I can give of this group work potential is actually the SEC Lounge. So this is a Discord channel that is led by Caleb Aranya, and I've been there for a while now, actually, and probably one of the greatest public sources of general trading information can be found in the various rooms of the SEC Lounge. Don't be afraid to actually work with other people when it comes to market play and trading. A lot of times people have this idea in their head that, I must be secretive. I must not let anyone else know what I'm doing. I hate to break it to you, but if you're doing market stuff, we pretty much have a good idea of what you're already doing. There's only so many potential moves that you can do in the market, especially when you're dealing with dedicated work in a major market hub. And finally, probably the most important piece of this, of why focusing on the market as an income source, is it's an almost unassailable income source. And what do I mean by that? It'll be incredibly difficult, especially if you're using a tune that is in an NPC corp. It is incredibly difficult to actually directly challenge your market operations in a meaningful way. It just is. It just is. It's like, and it's born out of the very public nature of the market hubs and using an NPC character, because you don't really earn any bonuses by being in a player corporation and doing trading or doing production or doing hauling from one market hub to the other, short of taking advantage of the inventory bonuses of having different hangar spaces and stuff like that. But aside from that, there really is no other bonus. So if you're looking for an income source that will have a very, very good chance of no one can directly affect your profitability by, say, attacking a certain stock of items, because you can always just move to another set of items. And if they want to attack your haulers, I mean, if you're an NPC corp, eventually they're basically just suiciding themselves into you. Eventually, there's going to be a point of reduced effectiveness to killing you. You know what I mean? So that's me personally. That's one of the main reasons I've continued to do it. It's an unassailable income source. The game could be totally dead, like it normally is in the summertime, or super, super busy like it normally is in the wintertime, and it doesn't affect my ability to do market play all that much. It may affect how I play it as far as the items that I buy and sell, but apart from that, not so much. All right, how do you read the market? So this is, we're going to go into, for this slide in particular, we're going to go over kind of the fundamental analysis items that I normally go through in determining whether to buy and sell an item. All right. So if you're reading this PowerPoint slide, Eve Station Trading Weekly Market Stream, that's actually a link to my YouTube channel, where I collect all the recordings of my Eve Station Trading show, which I record in Twitch, and record that with Eventi, now Plus 10 Gaming. And that's honestly like every single episode that I do I do active demonstrations of what I'm looking at in the charts. So that would be my best source for you guys as far as content that I've created to show you how to read the charts. But before we really get deep into reading the charts, we have to kind of assess some items about the item in question. All right, so this is going to be the fundamental analysis portion. The first question we should probably ask is, why would players want to use an item? So why are people wanting to use this? That sounds like a super simple question, but it actually the answer to that question leads to more details about the item, whether you should actually bother to buy and sell this or not. Okay. Is it a PvE item? If it's a very popular PvE item, then you could probably bank on it having some pretty reasonable daily volume traded. All right. So that might be an item that is attractive to you because of that. Another thing might be, this is a faction item. This is an item that is a little easier to fit, especially for alpha clones. Oh, all right. So that's a point of that could be the cause of the increased demand of a particular item. Or it could just be plain old A. Certain popular fits simply won't work without this item. There you go. So have at it and see where would be a good place to actually place your buy and sell orders based on that attribute of the item. All right, next thing I want to go over is how does an item travel through the harvesting, production, and transportation line and eventually make it to point of sale. So what do I mean by all that? So what I mean by that is it would be best if you had an idea of how an item ends up in JITA. I'm just using JITA as an example here because it's the major trade within the game. It can be any station or citadel, it doesn't really matter. If you have an idea of how an item makes that journey from somewhere in nullsec or as a rock, and it goes through the processes of being harvested, and from there maybe being refined and then produced into an item, and then somehow from the station or citadel that it was produced somehow makes it to JITA. Now, not every item actually goes through that production line. Some items are just simply loot drops. Some items can only be produced when the blueprint drops from anomalies or some sort of rat or something like that, right? Or it gets reverse engineered, or it gets invented, right? The blueprints. So be knowledgeable on how an item comes into being. Because if you can do that, then that will give you clues as to where the potential price trends will go. Or it can also tell you, hey, there's going to be, because of the changes that are coming, there may be a shortage on one of the inputs that are needed to create this item. And that's a huge piece, that's an incredible piece of information that you should use for making decisions whether to buy or sell this item right now. The next one I want to go over is how viable is the demand for your time horizon. A lot of big words there. So time horizon, what do we mean by time horizon? How long are you willing to put your money at risk in order to draw profit by buying an item? So what are some examples of short time horizon? So very, very short time frame where you're holding onto an item. So things that can actively be flipped, maybe even in a daily basis. All right. So examples of that would be items like metaphor modules. The IFFA DC is a good example. Meta medium shield extenders is a good example. Things that have relatively high volume, daily traded, and can be bought and sold simultaneously because of the inherent profit margin between the buy and sell price. All right. So those are really, really short time horizons. Items that may have longer time horizons would be, I would say minerals is a pretty classic example of that one. You could potentially make plays on titanium, pyrite, things like that, right? The actual raw minerals that create everything else in the game. But don't expect to be able to flip that within a week unless you know something that's going on or you're seeing something in the charts. More often than not, it takes months, if not years, to actually draw profit from those types of plays for items that make such small incremental price changes just because of the sheer volume available in the game. Okay? So you need to be able to identify what's a good time frame for you. If you're a guy who needs to be able to plex, man, you're probably gonna have to resort to things that can be actively traded intraday. All right, which will then lead you to work more actively every day. So it's a little bit of give and take, a little bit of pros and cons there. Okay. right, so we're gonna do some super basic chart work here. So this is an example of kind of three basic things I generally look at when I look at charts. So what you have in your screen right now is the 90-day price action on the Tengu. All right, and I have three very distinct parts of this chart that I want to go over. We're going to go over them in succession. We're going to look at the number one. All right. So in the area marked number one, what I'm trying to show you guys there is the price action going down and how that leads into the prices being in a position where they're going to be attractive as buy orders. We're trying to see, based on this is good evidence that the price is going down. It might be a good opportunity to actually place buy orders in the hopes of flipping this item. All right. So the area marked as 1 is the part of the graph where the signal is going to show us that the price is going down and this will be a good time to buy. So that blue line that you see, that is the 5-day moving average. The orange line that you see there is the 20-day moving average. When that 5-day moving averages crosses below the 20-day moving average, that is a sign that the price is trending downwards. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that that is an instant buy right now, right here, right now. As soon as you see that, buy. Not really. That's a part of the equation. So there's other indicators that you can use to support that hypothesis, and it's actually very clearly shown here in this slide. The vertical lines that are represented in this chart is the completed trades that happen throughout that particular day. So that is the range of the highest sell and lowest buy order completed. And on that same vertical line, as you'll see an orange dot. That orange dot represents, as per the labeling in the chart, it calls it the median day price, but in actuality it's the mean. It's not the median, it's the actual mean, the generic average for the day. All right. So again, what tells us in section 1 here that this is going to be a buy signal. So we have the moving average, the 5-day moving average going below or crossing below the 20-day moving average, and the daily price action actually falling even below those two moving average lines. And throughout, as you can see in the chart that we picked out here, it basically rated this floor right around the 120 million ISK mark, which it sustained for like a bit over a week. All right. So based on the technical indicators, this particular chart displayed that it went into an attractive buy position, and it maintained a floor where you can reasonably predict that, if I put a buy order here and if it gets matched, that's a really good deal. All right. Now section 2 basically reverses all of that. All right. Now we have the 5-day moving average going above the 20-day moving average, which is a pretty classic sell signal. All right. It's the price is trending upwards to the point where, if you had bought this previously at a lower price, it might be a good time to sell it now for a profit. Now, along with the 5-day moving average crossing the 20-day moving average, you also notice that the daily prices are falling above the 5-day moving average. So basically, you just reverse everything we talked about, and that's they're on either end of the spectrum when you're looking at the buy and sell signals. All right. So these are very classic displays. Now finally, the area marked as section 3 here. This is a pretty consistent trade channel. Right? So what do I mean by trade channel? So it's an established range for the particular period of time that we're looking at, where it historically reaches the bottom end of the prices is for this one, say like around the 140, and the top end would be like 160. So throughout the period, if you were placing buy orders at 140 and it was reaching those points more than half the time for the period that we kind of circled there, then you had a really good opportunity to flip that into selling these same Tengus for 160 million, having bought them at 140. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that just because you placed a buy order that they're actually going to be matched. It's likely. It's more likely. You're not having to fight day in and day out to get the most competitive pricing. If you understood that the prices has basically reached a point where it's in the trade channel. It has established buy and sell points. And a lot of the times, especially unless there's a change coming, or a large alliance had swapped doctrines or something like that, you'll either see this very cyclical up and down price movement, or just honestly just moving sideways like we see here on section 3. All right, so hopefully with just this little section of the training here, we were able to cover the bare basics of what you need to identify price movement in charts in EVE Online. All right, so now we're going to be moving on from here. Oh, actually, one last thing. Hopefully, I'll be able to expand on this in the future. We'll work on that on future videos, but I definitely intend the future videos to focus on a lot more chart work, ideally just in game, just so that we can establish what we're all capable of looking at, which is the in-game interface. All right, next section we're going to go over is take ownership of the process. All right, so this is more of a kind of maintaining your head in the game, so to speak. All right, don't hesitate to be creative or implement elements of your own playstyle to your market activities. Now, what do I mean by that? That's it's kind of an idea, it's kind of out there, but not really. So I'm going to use myself as an example for this one. I didn't really get into trading until I was already pretty established in my kind of general low sec, high sec gameplay style. All right, so before I got into trading, I already knew a fair amount of the industry in the game, a fair amount of I've had experience. By that time, I've already done null sec, done wormholes. I've already been living in low sec for a while when I turned to trading, and obviously high sec as well. All right, and not just kind of space or PvE, PvP activities. I've also been building Tech 3 and Tech 2 items up to that point. I just never really was a dedicated trader. So I implemented those sources of knowledge and experience into my trading habits. I was able to incorporate that plus the LP faction warfare stuff into determining whether I'm actually kind of getting a good deal on some of the items I was looking at. So I wasn't just plain old looking at price action. I was actually looking at the big production line picture, and that's what's given me a little bit of an edge over my competitors when it comes to pricing out faction items and things like that. So I used my previous knowledge and wrapped it all up into my marketplace strategy. All right, losses are inevitable. Don't fear it. Learn from it. Yeah, totally true. Even when there were points when I was managing other people's money, and in the well over 100 billion is. There were times where it was I was taking a beating, man. I was absolutely taking a beating, and I never really went into legit loss. I was almost always able to pay out my investors weekly, but there were times where I could just pay out so little, because um, I I was on losing end of trades for that period, So it's just one of those things. You simply cannot be going into this activity with the idea that like ISK per hour isn't gonna be a reliable metric for this activity. Like it's just not, simply because you don't know, as a matter of fact, how the market price is gonna be. Even though you could be an expert chart reader and all that stuff, but all that really gives you is, I think the price is going to go here because of the evidence presented right now. That's it. Anything beyond that is actually speculation. So just keeping it realistic, guys. There is no such thing as a 100% accuracy trader out there. If there is, he just hasn't lost anything yet. Yet being the operative word. All right, next one is be vigilant and always ask, what are the market effects of this? So we kind of covered that in the beginning a little bit. But how do I use this? I I I immerse myself in Eve Media. I do a lot of reading articles, podcasts, obviously. Uh, I may in game be kind of a not exciting player. I don't do exciting things in game because I'm a trader. I don't partake in large battles or anything like that. I do solo roams and low sec, but that's just low sec. That's just it's a small piece of it. But when I am consuming the news, when I am listening to, like talking in stations or open comms or anything like that, and they're talking about big events when they're going over, the monthly economic reports or CSM minutes or anything like that, I always I have to constantly ask, I wonder how that's going to change the price of insert item here. All right, I wonder how that's going to motivate. Is that going to motivate people to buy more Plex to start new alts or something like that, right? I always ask that question because a lot of times you'll find sometimes you'll kind of just absolutely run into an item that should, by all accounts, should be increasing in value but isn't, and you're there just like, oh my god, no one's picked up on this. I gotta act on it now. Simply because you kept asking the question and you were vigilant about it, and just always have that traders just being opportunistic. And finally, this is probably the best advice or the best thing to work on as early as possible that will lead you to stability and success in the market is, once you've established your methodology, because everyone has a little bit, they have their own flavor to it, which is fine. Once you've established your methodology, apply it with discipline. Discipline is going to be key. I myself, one of the main reasons 99.9% of the time, the main reason I'm going to lose out on a trade because I wasn't disciplined. I chased too hard on buy orders, or I was too optimistic on sell orders. Once you've identified your methodology, and if you've identified that you've made a mistake, you just have to go through the motions of what should you do at that point, with that in mind. Well, I'm sorry, let me backtrack. If you've identified using your methodology, whatever it ends up being, everyone does some things a little bit different, right? And you've identified that you've made a mistake, just own up to it and just push and make decisions based on how things appear at the present. Don't make decisions based on, oh, I hope it goes this way, so now I'm going to price it that way. Because you're already, you know what I mean? Like, there's no, unless there's there's a reason for you to hope a certain way, you should probably just take the loss and just learn from it. It's okay to take a loss, just as long as it's manageable. All right, but discipline, discipline, discipline. Whatever methodology you end up applying, just make sure you do it. Every trade should basically play out the exact same way every single time, regardless of the item. Most of the time. So yeah. I mean, a lot of the once you've gained enough experience with trading, you kind of reach this point where it doesn't. I don't even need to know what item it is. I just need to know price and chart appearance, and I'll be able to make my move right there and there. So until you get to that point, it's even more important to apply discipline, because it's a lot easier to become better if you do the same thing over and over and over, and it's a lot easier to identify where you went wrong if everything is done the same way over and over. All right, and the last part here. Spread the word and increase your profit. This is perhaps the single greatest contributor to my added wealth in the game. like honestly, it's not my technical prowess in identifying what to buy and sell. It's actually not it. All right. Share information when comfortable. Opening up to other traders can lead to working relationships due to shared resources. We talked about in the beginning the SEC Lounge. You'd be surprised how willing other traders and marketeers are in sharing some of their knowledge. Maybe not all of their knowledge, but some of their knowledge. You'd be surprised because we're just people. You know what I mean? We're just players playing the game. We know that there's more than enough profit to go around. I mean, short of like super long-term, super secret speculation, traders tend to actually talk a lot. Believe it or not, we're not as secretive as you think. I mean, I'm doing this lesson, crying out loud. I tell you, I'm definitely not unique in that. So if you really want to up your game, be prepared to work with other people in either attacking a particular aspect of the market, or just talking it out. Sometimes just talking out your experiences can give you like eureka moments, and those are brilliant moments, man. It's like, oh my god, I can't believe I missed that. Oh man, I'm gonna buy that item right now, because it's very difficult to know every little aspect of everything in the game, because Eve's just too big. And opening yourself up to discourse with other traders really increases your scope of knowledge in the game, and that will ultimately only lead to more profit. That's really the only path it can ever be. And finally, the lone trader has to work so much harder to match the profitability of traders that work together. Investment groups are an example of this. Yeah, I mean, these two items here are very much connected. The idea of investment groups, if it wasn't for me opening up my skill set for other players to take advantage of, and give me money so that I can return even more money to them, I wouldn't be in the position where I am now. I basically took the leap of faith of being a social market person, and that led me to more profit versus just being a secretive, flipper of meta modules in Jita. It's really underestimated, like the social mechanics and work and the part of working together for a common goal. A lot of people just for whatever reason, they just forget to do that when it comes to market play and industry. I don't know why. But you really shouldn't. You should take advantage of, combined forces, because you never know what that's going to lead to. To be honest, because that's kind of the driving force of how myself and Jushin Dragon even came up with the investment group idea. And it's just spitballing. It's just two traders spitballing. That's all it was. And now it's grown to a Discord where people throw around like a few hundred billion ISK just for giggles, just because they could. I'm not even. You know what I mean? It's crazy. But yeah, the social aspect of the game exists even in the realm of traders. So definitely take advantage of it. All right, so that's the end of our lesson here. But before we close out, I just want to kind of go over just a quick recap of all the stuff we talked about. So we talked about, fundamental information. All right, we talked about, hey, what types of players would probably be best suited for this activity? Time commitments, effort. Realistically, is this a good fit for your gameplay style? Not everyone can be a good trader. Not everyone can even trade, like even mechanically. To be honest, some people just don't have an eye for it, which is fine. That's totally fine. But just know that this activity exists, and it's a really easy way to increase your wealth in the game. And we covered some really, really basic chart work, which we hope to expand on future episodes of this training. And we covered we really just scratched the surface of using social dynamics to be a better marketeer or trader. A lot of people just simply don't take advantage of it, and I highly suggest that you guys actually, with just a little bit of creativity, you can really find a way to work well together with other people so that everyone becomes richer at the same time. All right, and finally, we want to thank Andromeda Snow for the classroom artwork that we used today. Really, really appreciate it. And that's really all I have to talk to you guys today. Thanks again for tuning in, and hopefully I was able to teach you guys something. And I will be working towards more video tutorials of this type for everyone to enjoy and maybe learn a little something to get closer to a consistent free Omega play, quote unquote free. All right. Again, this is Rodin, and this will be given to our investment group folks to disseminate to their alliance, and of course this will be on YouTube. Hopefully that's where you're actually viewing this from. All right, well, thank you again, guys, and we'll see you next time.